A commission with a jurisdiction map that's not attached to the charter. And you don't have one here in Neptune, they don't have one in Asbury Park, and the Western Lake Commission doesn't have one, so we don't even know what their jurisdiction is. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dawes.
And too bad the poster with nobody else has.
I can't.
Mike, Cliffwood Drive. The 17-298 and 17-299. Which individuals working for the township were involved, participated in any type of negotiation or discussion with that agreement with that organization? Which, by the way, I have no problem with that. And I did used to work there, and I'm proud to say that. But what employees participated in those discussions or negotiations?
I negotiated them.
Because the engineer just makes a determination.
The engineer, it's a two-part system. When the engineer looks at the property, looks at everything, and tells me whether it's a major encroachment or not. If there is a disagreement over that, after I send the letter out, then I do go out there with the engineer, do an on-site inspection with the property owner, but ultimately, I'm the one who's negotiating the agreement with the owner of the property.
I would just make the case, though, that while I think that your determination of $150 or whatever it was may be fair, I would also stipulate that this is different than a lot of the other property owners on the concourse, because those people have put those things in place for personal recreation and entertainment, whereas this is actually enhancing the participatory level of the property, the amount of activity occurring, and actually appreciating the operation of the building and the company itself, which ultimately will have a very favorable result related to redevelopment or related to the sale of that property. So I think it's important to keep be mindful and keep mindful of the fact that moving forward, when you do negotiate these types of agreements, that you're also enabling and empowering, which we're supposed to enable and empower businesses to do the right thing, but they're actually building their brand at the result of negotiating something which could be $150 a year, but I don't know what it's appreciating financially at that point where the economy turns and somebody says, how much money to take you guys out? I want to put this big structure here. So there is an effect on that as well.
Yeah, what happened here was this negotiation began when they were going before a board for site plan approval to renovate the premises. Yeah. And in fact, when we had the site pictured before we negotiated, there was a ticket booth and there was all sorts of structures in the right of way. As part of the site plan approval, they were going to take all that out. So actually, most of the encroachments, except for some boilers, a couple of bowlers, those were the only encroachments that ultimately resulted in the plan's approval by the board. And that's what this agreement is really protecting us
about. The bollards.
Just the bollards.
Which you could actually, that protects pedestrians, that protects people who go there. I understand why they're there. All right, I'm just saying moving forward, when you do that with a business as opposed to a residence, it's a little different. Sometimes the residences have been more egregious than the businesses, but I'm just saying I think it has a commercial valuation, and I think it has an effect on the sale price of a business. Thank you.
Anyone else on resolutions only?
Good evening. There appear to be a couple of resolutions.
Name and address.
I will get to that in a minute, sir. There appear to be a couple of resolutions related to the budget. My name is Norm Goldman. I'm a resident of 36 Ocean Pathway, Ocean Grove. And my question really relates to the visibility, the ability to look at the municipal budget, in addition to the fact that we know also that the school budget has been affected by recent action in Trenton in terms of being so-called overfunded school district, and there's a little bit of a deficit there. So we really like to know, from my perspective, as to where do we see all the figures, all the budgeting that will go into the next tax bill that we receive from the township.
The budget is online.
The budget that was adopted, public hearing held and adopted by the governing body is online. The resolutions you're seeing tonight are necessary to accept monies that we've received subsequent to the budget being adopted. There is a process that we have to follow to receive those grant funds and utilize those grant funds.
I understand from what you're saying, sir, is that the budget of the municipality has already been adopted in terms of whatever the next tax bill comes. Thank you, that's been very helpful. Thank you.
Anyone else on resolutions only? Seeing none? Move to the ordinance.
Ordinance 17-25, an ordinance amending volume 1, section 7-21.5 of the code of the Township of Neptune entitled Handicap Parking Violations and Penalties. Final reading.
Anyone from the public have any comments on this ordinance? Seeing none, do I have an offer? Offer by Committeewoman Rizzo. Second? Second by Committeeman Lane. Call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
yes,
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mayor Brandon.
Yes.
Ordinance 17-26 is an ordinance to amend volume 1, section 3-21 of the code of the Township of Neptune to prohibit the sale of tobacco to persons under the age of 21. First reading.
Do I have an offer?
I offer. I'll second.
Offer by Committeeman Lane, second by Committeeman McMillan. Call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
yes,
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mayor Brandon.
Yes.
Ordinance 17-27 is an ordinance to amend volume 1, chapter 7 of the code of the Township of Neptune by adding resident-only handicap parking zones on Cookman Avenue, Abbott Avenue, and Heck Avenue. First reading.
Do I have an offer?
I offer.
Offer by Deputy Mayor Williams, second.
second,
Committeewoman Lane, Rizzo. I said I was gonna do that. Call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
yes,
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
Ordinance 17.
The last meeting I got by without calling somebody else. Okay, go ahead.
Ordinance 17-28 is an ordinance to authorize a grant of deed of open space easement to the County of Monmouth on Block 1807, Lot 2, formerly known as Block 307.26, Lot 5, owned by the Township of Neptune. First reading.
Do I have an offer?
I'll offer.
Offer by Committeeman Lane, second.
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Williams. Call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
yes,
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mayor Brandon.
Yes, and before you read this ordinance that we introduced tonight is another important step forward in this body's effort to continually improve critical service to our residents and to make good on our commitment to make Neptune the best it can be. We're confident that this ordinance gives this body and therefore our residents what we represent, more direct oversight in the workings of the police department while giving our law enforcement professionals the autonomy to continue the efforts to make Neptune the safest it can be. Let me read the ordinance.
Ordinance 17-29 is an ordinance to amend volume 1, chapter 2, section 2-10 of the code of the Township of Neptune entitled Police Department. First reading.
Do I have an offer? Offered by Deputy Mayor Williams. Do I have a second?
I'll second,
Second by Committeewoman Rizzo. Call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
No, I'm going to make an offer to table this ordinance. I just have some points that I'd like to make. Over the past 5 years, the police department has averaged over 35,000 service calls. Out of that, and I know Mr. Randy had his chart, even if we had 3 times the amount, it would amount to only 1% as it relates to complaints. The complaints he had didn't even tell us those are exonerated, sustained, or not sustained. The police department works hard to maintain the quality of life for the residents of Neptune. And even if you look at it, over the past 4 or 5 years, 15 to 20% of police officers every year are awarded commendations from the Men of Valor, also from the police chief as well. I think we have outreach as it relates to homeowners associations, and I think we've done a good job in the police as it relates to that. So I will vote to table that. In addition to, when you look at New Jersey State Ordinance Task 14-1-18, when you talk about this ordinance, which is effectively going to result in a removal of the police director, it states that a police director should be removed for just cause as it relates to A, failure to perform duties as police director as defined, in the ordinance, mental or physical incompetence or conviction of a felony, and I don't think that this ordinance or the director rise to the standards. And it also talks about in terms of notification within 15 days, and I don't think that was done either. So I cannot in good conscience support this ordinance. Thank you.
No.
Ms. Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Public hearings on ordinances 17-26 through 17-29 will be held in 2 weeks, which is Monday, July 24th. Tonight's consent agenda consists of 14 resolutions, starting with number 17-298 and running through 17-311.
Do we have an offer?
I'll offer.
By Committeewoman Rizzo,
I second.
second by Committeeman McMillan. Call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Resolution 312, extend offer to Donnell Coleman for the position of driver in the Department of Public Works.
Do you have an offer?
I offer.
Offered by Deputy Mayor Williams, second.
I'll second.
Second by Committeeman Lane. Call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Resolution 313, authorize the payment of bills totaling $320,002.90.
Do you have an offer?
I'll second.
Offered by Committeewoman Rizzo, second by Committeeman McMillan. Call the roll.
Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Resolutions.
Next thing on the agenda, privilege of the floor, comments from the public. One trip to the microphone, 5 minutes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, okay. You're hiding back there.
Barbara Burns, Coalition Avenue. I have a couple of questions about ordinance number 1729. Did we vote to table that, or did we vote to not table it? I'm a little.
There wasn't a second to the motion, therefore the motion failed.
Okay, and I have a couple of things I want to say. First of all, I mean, overall, we have a wonderful police department. My
Absolutely.
interactions with the police department have been very favorable. But, you know, no institution, no group is perfect. And I appreciate and applaud the efforts of the Township Committee to work to improve the police department, because we can all stand to be improved. No one is perfect. I would share some of Kevin's comments about this ordinance. It's unclear to me how changing from the police director capacity to the Township Committee in terms of providing oversight is going to improve oversight for the police department. It seems to me that perhaps a full-time employee who is more conversant on a day-to-day basis with what's going on in the police department is perhaps a better vehicle for oversight for the police department. And so I would suggest that you might want to reconsider that, because from what I see here, and perhaps this is going to go through some revisions, it's unclear to me how a separate or an additional layer of supervision that is not really familiar on a day-to-day basis with what the police department is doing is going to improve performance. I know you guys all have day jobs, and those day jobs are very demanding, so this would seem to me to be a huge time commitment, and is perhaps, I won't say it's a waste of time, but perhaps there are other vehicles that you might explore to get you closer to your goal, which is better oversight, better supervision of police department, and getting you to closer to your goal of improving the performance of the department overall.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just point out the legality issue. I'm not going to get into policy here. The Township Committee has to make the policy decision, but there is a state statute which basically indicates that the chief of police and the police department, they handle the day-to-day operations. But there is what we call an appropriate authority, which is a civilian control authority. And it's very similar, I guess, philosophically, to the idea of Congress oversight over the military. That this is a civilian government, so there has to be some sort of civilian oversight. The statute tells you who that could be. It could be a police director, as has been the case for the last 4 years. It could be the administrator, which some towns do, or it could be the township committee, and the township committee appointing a special committee, which could also include people other than the township committee, which this would, to do a oversight. The police department still handles day-to-day operations, but the question is who's going to provide the administrative oversight, and it's a policy decision.
I understand that, and I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm just questioning whether I'm more professional or someone more closer to the day-to-day operation is better positioned to provide the kind of oversight that you're talking about. Also, the ordinance doesn't really talk at this point about what additional powers or authorities this oversight person might have. I mean, you know, we've seen in big cities they have police complaint review boards. I don't think that's what we're talking about.
No, that's not what you're talking about.
But, you know, what additional power or authority, or what's their brief going to be, really?
Well, it says the duties of the committee, the subcommittee. And quite frankly, the ordinance that created the police director listed the same duties for the police director. What I did when I prepared the ordinance, I modified the duties to be more of an evaluation review situation than it is an involvement in day-to-day operation, which it shouldn't be.
Yeah, it does talk about review, but it doesn't really say anything about approval. I mean, you know, what
Township committee has to approve everything that the review board does.
Okay, so again, I'm not clear what this is going to add. The township committee is already doing that.
Well, the township committee is delegating it to a special committee, a subcommittee, that will concentrate on that more than the township committee can, which has general jurisdiction over all of the township's problems.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add, there is also going to be, Barbara, there's also going to be a third person that we haven't decided who it's going to be. We haven't gotten that far. But there will be a third person on that committee. It could be a former police chief. It could be a former attorney. It could be a former judge. We're going to be making a determination after the next reading and reach out to see who that third person will be. And we're hoping basically that it is somebody who is, of course, law enforcement familiar.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. David Phillips, 66 Cookman Avenue, Ocean Grove. I understand that the Ocean Grove parking issue has been around a long time, so I guess the committee is forgiven for being a little jaundiced on the subject. I do, however, feel a little compelled to stand here, given some of the activities that are going on, for instance, in Asbury Park, and the fact that as I live in Ocean Grove, I see with my own eyes the impact that has, particularly on the north end of the town. About a year and a half ago, I committed to work with Ocean Grove Parking Committee. Many of the members are here. We actually spent a long time, many man-hours, putting together what I thought, because I was part of it, so I would think it was good, very comprehensive proposal for the whole of Ocean Grove. Interestingly enough, we took it to the Homeowners Association and not only had overwhelming support for it, but actually enthusiastic applause for the proposal. Subsequently, we did a 400+ survey, and again, got the same sort of support for the proposal. I think you were involved. We then had a township meeting and a series of meetings, and all of this work, the good work that we did, the good work that everybody on the committee did, frankly, has ended up, disappointingly in my mind, with 18 new spaces and apparently a township-wide referendum after all this time. And so I have a question, which is, Asbury Park seemed to do this very quickly. I hate to compare townships, it's a very bad idea, but nevertheless, they've taken it upon themselves to manage that environment. Their town is growing, it's becoming more vibrant, and as I'm sure most of you know, any Saturday night, not just in season, but actually any time of the year, the north end in particular of Ocean Grove becomes frankly an overflow car park for those people who either work or visit Asbury Park. I live on the south end, and in season, even yesterday, people getting out of their cars outside of my house and probably walking off to Bradley as a matter of interest. So I don't think this is a sustainable and a tenable situation for taxpaying residents or Meeting Association or anybody else. So my question is, are you taking this seriously? And if so, why can we not institute, as in fact Asbury Park is doing right now, permit parking on a trial basis for one side of the street? By the way, as a parking committee, we're very happy to stand with you and help you to try and put that together so that resource is not the biggest issue. And we stand and would like to do that right away. I really don't see the point of having a referendum which is township-wide, even if it is secluded to the Ocean Grove voters ultimately. I think what we need to do is do something right now, be shown, see that people can see that the township is actually reacting, and for once get out of what has been a perennial issue of parking in Ocean Grove with actually nothing ever being done.
I have a question. You were a part of that parking task force.
I was. Well, the parking committee for the whole model, not the task force.
Oh, not the task force.
They wouldn't have me on that.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
That's it?
Yes. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kennedy Butler, 65 Broadway, Ocean Road. I have two comments. One is my own, and another is a neighbor has asked me to read a letter to me. My first comment is the Community Association has found a way to solve our Saturday night parking. The book is ventriloquist act, and I've never ever seen empty spaces on Broadway this summer. And that's my own comment. This is the second is a letter a neighbor have asked me to read to you. You know my opinion on the permanent parkers. I don't have to worry about that. We were unable to attend tonight's meeting regarding parking, so I'd like you to leave these thoughts with you. This is from Michael Zirian, K-Z-I-R-I-A-N, and Lori Losapio, L-O-S-A-P-I-O, of 69 and a half Broadway. We are supportive of the plan to have parking permits for Ocean Grove residents, with specified areas dedicated to parking for residents. While we don't have a significant problem on the way, we recognize the issues of the rest of the town and want to ensure all have equal rights. However, we've heard that residents with driveways will be excluded. We vehemently disagree with this provision. We have a very small driveway to parking. One small car must be tucked under the house. We are grateful to have this luxury to pay for the value of our home, which is reflected in our tax bill, which I got today. We're now residents and paying taxes in the range of $15,000. We would have no more rights to park on the street than day trippers coming to visit our lovely town and beach. We would never be able to park in the areas designated for residents. This is there. I'm reading their letter. Should the resident area be on our side of the street, we would never be able to park in front of our home. That would be reserved for a neighbor. To further exacerbate the situation, since we live on Broadway, which, as you know, flows in heavy rain, should the resident area be across the street, we would not be able to move our car to that side when it flows. Please express and consider our concerns. Thank you. I have one other thing to say. If you have a driveway, you don't need a parking space. Thank you.
Thank you. Great spot, I guess.
Good evening. My name is Tia Boynton. I live at 14 Manor Drive in Neptune. I am a Neptune resident, lifelong, educated lived here all my life. Born in Fickens Hospital. My daughter turned 16 recently, and I wanted, of course, to have a sweet 16 party for her, being the good daughter that she is. When I tried to book a hall, I was refused by just about every hall in the Neptune area and Neptune City. I was able to eventually use a hall in Ocean Grove, going through a friend who lived in Ocean Township. Going through a friend who lived in Ocean Township. I was bothered by this because I am a lifelong resident, as I said, of Neptune, New Jersey. And every place that I called, I have, or a family member, or my church has patronized these places in the past. But because it was a Sweet 16 party, they did not want to host those. I have heard that there have been problems. I understand that, but that had nothing to do with me, so it still bothered me. My question is, this evening, I used a community center in Ocean Grove. Ocean Grove, I'm sorry, Ocean Township. Ocean Township. What it is, they allowed those parties, but they have rules. So, and I thought it was very good. And I was willing to comply with every rule because I wanted to have my daughter's party. So I was able to do that, but I was kind of sad because I was not able to have it in the town that I love. I'm in Neptune, I live here. So my question is, I was wondering, have y'all thought about or considered building a community center where we can host events and have rules for events like this so problems won't occur? Because they did have strict rules, which again, I was totally willing to comply with because I wanted to host a party. So that was my question. Have you considered this or ever heard a complaint like this before?
So I've never heard of anything like that. Have you?
We've certainly considered that over the years, and there's been discussion about it, how much it would cost, where we can locate it. And that discussion isn't dead. We'll be looking at that in the future again.
But my question to you is, what was their rationale for why they would do it?
It was a Sweet 16 party. I guess they had problems.
So they had bar mitzvahs and other parties involving youth?
I cannot say. All I know is that I was told flat out they do not host Sweet 16 parties.
Listen, I had the same problem with my daughter. I had to go to Broward Beach. For some reason, they think, they're going to rowdy, or have bring alcohol in it. And we should look in, it is an ongoing issue. I hear that from different people, too.
My question is, where were these facilities? Were they firehouses? Were they?
You want me to start naming?
I really would like you to name that. Maybe we could answer I could answer the reason why and whose jurisdiction it's under, and maybe we could work it out.
Okay, I just had my husband's 40th party at Neptune City, their firehouse. They told me no. I called Shark River Firehouse, no. I called Hamilton Firehouse, no. Again, all of these places I have, or a family member, or my church has patronized in the past.
Okay, I can't answer for Neptune City because this is Neptune,
Yes.
but the fire district in Neptune is dictated by their own fire commissioners. Again, we apologize, but as a township, they have their own board of commissioners. The board of commissioners probably set the rules based on possibly what they saw in the past. I sympathize with you, I really do, but again, my feeling might be to find out when the next fire commissioners meeting is, go over and address the fire commissioners and ask them why their rules are so stringent, or maybe the possibility that they may put a set of rules in place for this. Again, I sympathize with you, but I just had a feeling when you were talking, I kind of knew where you were going with this, you know?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Joyce? Joyce?
Joyce. Sorry. I've only had my hand up for an hour, so I don't.
So have a lot of other people.
Hello, Joyce Klein, 105 Downhaven Way, Ocean Grove. I would like to follow up a little bit on the discussion in the workshop. I mean, first, I agree with David Phillips that I think you could really do a pilot project and find the same results. But that's your choice, not mine, and so that's okay. But if you're moving forward with a non-binding referendum to do permit parking in Ocean Grove or a pilot project for permit parking in Ocean
We're gonna discuss it, maybe it would turn out to be a pilot program, I'm not sure.
Because quite frankly, a non-binding referendum or a non-binding program seems non-binding. And so I'm sort of wondering why. And why not do a pilot project itself? And if you're going to do a referendum, how do we know that you're actually going to only consider the results of the districts in Ocean Grove? Or are you going to look and see, oh, the rest of Neptune doesn't care, so we don't care? You know, I don't think you're going to do that, but I'm just trying to explore how that's going to work.
We don't know the answer to that question yet. They have to talk about it and get back to us.
Well, but the referendum has to be for all of the townships. And so I guess what I'm trying to find out, I understand that this is a new concept, but we're on a kind of tight time frame, so I don't want to leave these questions until the public hearing because that will be too late. So I guess my question, you know, if the way the election law is structured, which you're stuck with, I'm stuck with, we're all stuck with, is that all of Neptune has to vote on a non-binding referendum that would only impact Ocean Grove. I understand that you can look at the results of that non-binding referendum by district and only look at districts 1, 2, 3 in Ocean Grove, but you could also look at the whole township. And I have no doubt that the referendum on a township-wide basis would go down to defeat, because why would anyone care outside of Ocean Grove? So what I'm looking for from you is what you're planning to do with the results of this non-binding referendum, because why would we want to possibly agree or think it was a good idea for you to have a non-binding referendum affecting only Ocean Grove if you were going to consider the results of all of Neptune, which we could tell you what they are now? Why waste your time?
And that's a good question, and every question that you ask will be taken into consideration when we talk about it. You can't answer that now.
And Joyce, that was my first question. That was one of the questions that I had to know before we even talked about it is, you know, again, we spoke about it as a parking task force, that we realized that the properties, or all of the properties owned by the Camp Meeting Association, with the exception of the streets. Now, we talked about it in parking when we were talking about parking permits as the task force. Okay. That was my question to our attorney, although, and I spoke to other attorneys about it, and again, it was kind of, okay, it was up in the air, and we're unique. So if you talk about a referendum in a town, and a town doesn't have part of the land being owned by somebody, and the streets of Neptune, or the streets of Ocean Grove, or streets being owned by the town, it makes it a whole different thing. That was my initial question to Gene. If we go through this referendum, two things. Number one, the taxpayers of Neptune own the streets, and that was my main concern. Saying, okay, if it's only in Ocean Grove, then why do people in 18 other or 17 other districts in the township of Neptune get to vote on it? But again, I was told by different attorneys that you cannot discriminate against the taxpayers. If the taxpayers, or if it's a budget expense, and the taxpayers pay for that budget expense, then they have the right to vote, and their vote cannot be eliminated or discriminated. That's the reason why
Excuse me, but what is the expense in a non-binding referendum? There's no money being spent.
There's no money being spent on a referendum.
There's no money being spent because it's non-binding. You haven't decided to do anything.
But it's going to be, okay, but let's realize what we saw, it makes sense what you said, but what we saw on for discussion is, and I'll read it verbatim, we didn't talk about whether we were going to do a trial run of a permit. This is the way it was approached to us on the agenda. November election referendum regarding resident parking permits in Ocean Grove. Deadline for submittal of public questions for November election is August 18th. That's what we thought that we were talking about, because that's the way it was presented to us in our agenda on Friday. So that was my first question. I had to know, where do we go with this? If it's only going to be Ocean Grove residents that vote, oh well and good. But again, if it has to be the township who votes, I don't get the gist of that, but that's why I asked Gene. That was my opening question today. That's why I asked Gene you know, where are we going with this, you know, and what are we gonna do with it, and how are we gonna work it out? And you were sitting there and heard all of the discussion on it, and, you know, we have a very short period to do this, so let's get it done.
Okay.
Thanks, Joyce.
The only thing I can say on it, there's a lot of towns that have sections of towns that tend to benefit from a non-binding referendum over not having one. Middletown is classic. I mean, there might be a non-binding referendum, which may only affect Lincroft or Port Monmouth, but still the whole town votes for it, and yet the township committee is obviously looking at those sections which are mostly affected.
Nancy, Nancy, I didn't
I'm
call you.
sorry, say again, sir?
I didn't call you. Nancy, I called.
Thank you. I could talk about a lot of different things, but I only have 5 minutes. So, I first I'm going to give you a little report relating to certified local governments, and then I'm going to come to the RFQ relating to the HPC. If I have time, talk about parking and stuff. But at the last township committee meeting, Mr. Gataletta very nicely asked me to work with him, to come and meet with him and his staff relating to the certified local government application. And I was able to meet with him, with Bernie Haney and Don Crozier about submitting an application to what we'll call CLG. It was clarified, though, that the last contact with Trenton, with the Office of SHPO, another acronym, which oversees the certified local government, the last contact was actually made by Kathy Arlt, a volunteer and concerned citizen who contacted them in August of 2016, almost a year ago. Her questions and the answers were provided to the Township Committee at that time. It seems that there has been no contact by any township official with the Trenton office for quite some time before that. I had been under the impression that there had been sort of an ongoing conversation, and that does not seem to have been the case. Mr. Haney has now, however, reached out to the Trenton office to set up a meeting to clarify some criteria related to the application. And we hope that we can report back at the next Township Committee meeting that the appointment at least has been made. And Jonathan, Jonathan Kinney in Trenton has indicated that he would be willing to come to Neptune to meet with us, but he needs to get back to us with the exact same thing, with the date. I'd also like to thank Don Crozier, because today I was able to actually look through the wonderful boxes of materials that Mr. Haney has referred to in the past as related to the CLG application. Apparently, an application was almost submitted in 2011, but it was not carried through. There was nothing in the boxes to indicate why it did not go. I'm not going to get into that now. The materials in the boxes were what had been researched and compiled for that application. The other box contained various documents related to prior and current versions of the HPC guidelines. Of note in the box, however, was the presentation made by Mark Pavlich in January 2006 to the HPC and to the zoning board, and a complete transcript is available in one of those boxes, which provides great background on the research and preparation of the guidelines that were approved back in 2005. I would recommend that it be read and referred to as the new guidelines are drafted, as it may mean that some work does not need to be redone, and I think it would give a great context to whomever it is that is working on that. So that's on the CLG. So that's basically a report, and I thank very much the willingness of the staff to work with a volunteer to move that forward. Which is anything on that, I'll move on to the request for qualifications. Oh, but I should say actually thank you, because we are moving forward on the CLG application, which we are making that step forward, which is great. On the request for qualifications that was released to get expertise and assist with the redrafting of the HPC guidelines, or standards, as some call them. Has the RFQ been rewritten? Or where are we on the RFQ?
The RFQ is under rewrite. It has not been completed and it has not been reviewed by the township committees yet.
Okay, but it is being rewritten in some way, so it won't be released verbatim.
Correct.
Okay, great. Will it be more broadly disseminated than the previous one? Because I know you were disappointed with the number of responses.
Well, as I pointed out earlier, I mean, we went through our normal process and we also did reach out to Preservation New Jersey to disseminate that document. And quite possibly, we may need a longer period of time for professionals to look at the RFQ in order to get back to us. And as I said in a prior meeting, after we had received the RFQs, that we were going to try to obtain some additional input from Preservation New Jersey, you know, to formulate the RFQ itself.
Okay, can I just have one more question?
No.
Why is no member of the HBC involved in this?
You can talk with Vito.
Okay, well, the rest of it was, why is not the HBC involved in the?
Thank you. He'll talk to you about that.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Donald, you had your hand up. For those who may not be aware, you have to raise your hand if you want to come up. There are a lot of hands up, and I recognize the people that come up by who had their hand up the longest. You know, so there's some people that had their hand up longer than other people, and I got to get to them. Mr. Donald had his hand up for quite a while.
Yeah, Mike, Clifford Drive. The resolution, what was it? The one regarding the police department.
29?
Yeah, 29. So,
ordinance.
This is a very, very critical juncture for our township and for our police department. And I just want to say, I think it speaks volumes that the chief of police and the police director didn't remain in the room to listen, because I think it's important for them to get a holistic or an organic understanding of how people feel. And I'm shocked that they did say, but be that as it may, I wanted to point out something, if I could, that I'm reading the last page of the settlement in the lawsuit that was settled with Officers Gonzalez and Savage, and it states right here, the last sentence, defendants acknowledge that, meaning the township, acknowledge that the investigation report of Gregory Turner may result in discipline of members of the Township Police Department. And the legal finding states that it's not a question of whether or not the Township Committee or the administration wants to apply. It's a question of if it's applicable, it must be used. So there wasn't anybody that was punished or disciplined, so long as I know. And regarding what rises to the level, there is tremendous amount of evidence that would show people in Freehold or Trenton or Washington would be chased from office, irrespective of party, if this situation happened, regardless of whether or not you were an appointed or an elected official. And so I would caution the police department to really consider going even further and changing the whole outlook, the whole attitude internally, how we look through the town. You know, the chief of police and the director are our eyes and ears. And frankly, I don't think they speak for most people. I think it's all right. And so I just think we really need to look at who is leader. I mean, I don't want to get too, I don't want you to accuse me of attacking, but there are two women that are dead in this time period. I'm not saying anybody's fault directly, but I'm saying it happens over the watch of leadership. And the fact that they didn't stay and listen, I think that, you know, you're all sitting in the hot seat. You didn't have the choice to pick up, or maybe you did, but you chose to stay because people that serve have a special place in your heart. So I want to say also regarding the parking in Ocean Grove, I sat in the joint field office for 14 months and did nothing but learn after Sandy, bringing some of my business partners together and some of my investors in private sector. And what we learned from large cities, dealing with parking, is that you have to engage private sector. I don't understand why we don't spend any time talking about somebody that can develop a piece of property along Memorial Drive and work at a patterned shuttle service to a number of different areas and beyond Ocean Grove, okay? And then engage businesses in Asbury, Ocean Grove, Bradley, maybe as far as north as Long Branch and as far as south as Belmar, to give those people discounts and reward for doing the right thing, parking out of the city of Ocean Grove and reducing the congestion for these fine folks that pay good tax money and want to park right outside their house. But in the situation, the solution is in private sector. We are never going to be able to put 5 pounds of stuff in a 3-pound bag, and there are too many cars. The city was out, it's a pre-existing non-conforming use. The whole city is one. It was designed at a time that you couldn't even drive in Sunday, right? If you were there on Saturday night, you were stuck until Monday morning. So we have to think out, not just outside the box, but outside the block. And think about ways that we can engage somebody in private sector and what type of amenities can be put into that parking facility, what type of technology that will enable people to actually move with a very fluid process in and around the Shark River, incorporating Asbury Park, dinner as a show, maybe you get VIP shuttle service. There are plenty of businesses that would engage that type of opportunity. But getting back to the police department, I want to pay a particular point of respect and admiration for the people that voted for this. Irrespective of what happened in the last couple of years, it was entirely, in my opinion, too much responsibility and too many hats on one person. It just didn't make sense. And there's a culture in the police department that kind of like we all hang together or we hang separately. And that should be for patriotism and for service of the public, not for preserving, in my opinion, secrets and a bunch of crap that gets swept under the rug all the time. It's a very lumpy rug at the police department, and I applaud you for what you did. Sometimes it takes a lot of strength to hold on to something, and sometimes it takes more strength to let go.
One comment about that, as far as the parking, we did have something where we had school parking lot.
Yeah, we've had the jitney, and we've had a look at building a parking garage, which was not economically feasible. So.
And the jitney and driving from the school parking lot to Ocean Road didn't get many people. They didn't utilize it, so there were some thinking out of the box for that. Okay, now I just saw many hands up. Monica, yes, okay.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
I need help. Who's had their hand up the most?
Now I'm lost. I'm trying to follow it, but now I'm lost. Everybody has a hand up.
Monica Kowalski, Legato, 84 Abbott Avenue. So yes, I'm here to talk about the parking too. But first, I'd like to thank you for acknowledging the issue, because it's been an issue, but it's been an issue forever and ever. So we were handed a little note tonight that perhaps we should stand up and tell our parking story, or urge to discuss it with the committee. Which is fine. So, Deb, are you here? Deb, raise your hand. There you go. Okay. So, look, that lady back there, lo and behold, many years ago, her and I had a discussion. Deb Osepchuk. So, because I was building a home in Ocean Grove, and I had a driveway. It was great. Fit 2 to 3 cars. But because I was building new construction, by ordinance, I wasn't allowed to have a driveway anymore. And Deb didn't want me to have a driveway, so I extended my porch 3 feet to the left to make sure I would never have a driveway, which was fine, and I had no problem doing that because I wanted to be historically correct, moved into Ocean Grove. So I have dealt with that. However, unlike most of the people seated behind me, I also have a family. It's a family home. I have my brother living next to me, I have my mother, my sister, my husband, and I also have a child who is 14. Guess what? In 2 years, he's going to get a he's going to get a permit to drive. I have friends in Ocean Grove who have children. I have sets of twins down the street. I've got people 4 blocks away with 3 children who are all in the same age range. 2 blocks the other way. There are young children in Ocean Grove who are coming to the age where they're going to drive. And guess what? That means more cars. So, I have a problem with, number one, a referendum. Because a referendum doesn't speak to every owner in Ocean Grove. The Homeowners Association is a great association, but I don't think it has more than 350 members. Your parking committee, great idea, didn't have more than 10 members. We are not getting the voice for the entirety of Ocean Grove as to what would be a reasonable, rational situation. And I think by virtue of a referendum, if you put it on a public ballot, you're really discriminating against the remaining owners in Ocean Grove who don't live here. They also have a right to park. And quite frankly, if you took their right away, they would be upset because you're talking about resident parking. You're not talking about owner parking. I haven't heard anything about that yet. I have a problem because Ocean Grove is also a part of Neptune. All of Neptune votes, and once again, are the entirety of Neptune's votes going to be counted in the referendum? You know what? They should, because they all pay their taxes too, just like I do. So Ocean Grove and Neptune Township, which is another issue, we all pay our taxes to Neptune Township, and guess what? We all pay for the maintenance of the roads in Ocean Grove and the roads in Neptune. This issue came up with the handicap when the Township Committee was giving preferred handicap places to spaces to people in Ocean Grove. People in Neptune complained because they weren't given the same courtesy. So lo and behold, guess what? Everybody now can have preferred parking for their handicap spaces. You had 3 of them on the agenda tonight for places in Ocean Grove. It's the maintenance of the roads. The roads are public for Neptune residents. So, my problem with this is it doesn't create new parking. I wish, yes, that someone would come in and put in a parking garage. I wish it would be for residents and owners. That would be great, but you're right, it's not feasible. The Township Committee, the body, needs to recognize that our taxes are 2 to 3 times higher than anywhere else in Neptune. That's with the exception of perhaps a small portion of Shark River, okay? Substantially higher. So I have a problem if you're talking about not only a public referendum, but you're talking about permits, and you want the residents of Ocean Grove to pay for those permits. Because once again, family situation, I've got many people in my family who will be driving, and soon it'll be a 3-car family. So am I supposed to get 1, 2, or 3 permits? Why should I have to pay for them? My taxes are almost $15,000. That's insane. And now you want me to pay for parking when you tell me that I can't have a driveway? Really? I feel like this is just, I'm sorry, I think it's a further method of discrimination if this is not treated as a whole for the owners and the residents of Neptune. You know, we have these public meetings, which is great, but the reality is they are not reaching every single citizen who lives in Ocean Grove, particularly in July and August. There are people who come, you know, who live in Bergen County, New York. They're not here. They don't know. And I can guarantee you, if you pass these referendums or you pass a permit parking and they don't have an opportunity to speak to you, it's going to be very difficult. I'm going to suggest that perhaps you do advertising in Ocean Grove. Perhaps you work on a shared service arrangement and get the Camp Meeting Association to donate the use of the Great Auditorium for a night or 2. Because quite frankly, just like we did the master plan, this should be open for public discussion. And I realize that my time is up.
I can, you know, that's why this is difficult.
I know, listen, there's no easy answers, no easy answers.
Everybody thinks they have an easy answer, but this is difficult. And Neptune is unique. You can't go by other towns.
Right.
It is quite unique. And whether we're going to have the referendum or not, that's going to be discussed. And your questions and concerns, as other people that we hear from tonight and we hear from up here, will be taken into consideration as how far we go with this.
Ultimately, Doc, one of the things I would also like you to take into consideration is if you do go to a permit system, or even if you do it on a trial basis, you really should put the monies for any enforcement. In other words, any jobs that are created really need to come from the enforcement monies and not the residents. Start it up as a trial program within the township. See if you can get a grant for it. Get a special enforcement officer, and let that be, from the violations or the fines that you're going to accrue from non-residents or non-owners. Let the employees' payment come from that, because to tax the residents further is not going to work.
Taking notes on that.
Thank you.
Lady with the pink sweater on, the hand up there. Yes. Oh, it's not a sweater. Okay.
Hi, I'm Teresa Checky, 74 Mount Table Way in Ocean Grove. I want to thank you again for looking at the issue of parking. A solution is really necessary. I too was on the homeowners parking committee. And when it came before you, and as David had said, we received a great deal of support. And when it had come to this body, and when a task force was put in place, I must confess, I thought it was a real stall tactic. And it was a great way of putting off the homeowners. So I hope that's not the case now. I am not in favor of a referendum. I fail to see what that would accomplish for a couple of reasons. Number one, since the entire municipality has to vote on it, it would lots of people would be voting who have no skin in the game. We live in the north end of Ocean Road. Parking is a nightmare. We are impacted dramatically by Asbury Park, and it has a huge effect. Once my car is parked, if I have forgotten something at the grocery store, I'm not going to go out to ShopRite. That's just not going to happen. So I urge you to consider a pilot program. Again, I think there are a lot of people who would be very happy to assist, and it certainly could be self-supporting. And while I too would agree with this woman, initially I was not in favor of paying for parking permits. I'm thinking my taxes are huge as they are. However, if it were able to get something going and to have this be a sustainable program, and that plus enforcement, and it should be very stiff enforcement fees, could make this work. And while it's not going to guarantee us a parking spot, maybe it'll give us a better chance to get one. So please consider that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Gerard Gosker, 15 Surf Avenue. To keep this brief, thank you. What I just wanted to comment on was the fact that it sounds as if one side of the street permit parking is a great offer and makes a tremendous amount of sense, but I think that it's not, our town is not a one-size-fits-all situation. I live on a corner. Across the street from me are 6 condos. If you go out my side door, my kitchen door, I have 4 condo units. Half a block down Surf, there are 9 condo units. Now, if everyone there had 1 car even, that's more cars that can fit on one side of any street in the neighborhood. I think that if this is going to work, you need to look at the streets and see residences and then sort of plan out maybe on Surf, on Beach, both sides are resident-only parking or permit parking, because you're just gonna have us killing each other anyway, for a spot. Thank you.
Thank you. Hank?
Thank you, sir. Hank Coakley, Valley Road, change of pace. I want to talk about ordinance 1729. I hope this ordinance, whenever it's passed, if it's passed, makes one damn good police department a heck of a lot better. I'm all for it. I don't know the inner workings of it. Fortunately, in my personal career, the fire department called me before the police department. With my lifestyle right now, I was a winner. I'm still a winner. I'll leave you with this. I have figures from May. I'll get figures from June. There was 11 police officers killed in the line of duty in May in the United States. 6 were shot. So let's, everyone, guys, my fellow taxpayers, let's support our police department. They're there by choice. They do one hell of a job. The same way I did my job.
Killing black
Dorothy.
people.
So what?
Dorothy. Black people are important too.
I have the floor.
Dorothy, you don't be quiet. You have to be escorted out.
But again, whatever happens, yes, you work like hell as a dentist, Vito as a business administrator, Kevin as a pharmaceutical. I almost said the wrong thing. You knew what I was going to say. You knew what I was going to say. Every time I see you in the front of me, I apologize to everybody. But again, yes, there might be a very small minority who are sleepers, just like that police officer who made the major crime here in Neptune. Yes, when he shot his wife, I'm on public record. Give him a fair trial and hang him the next morning. Not because he killed his wife. He killed his wife in front of his daughter. He's not a man. He should have been stepped on like a roach. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. This ordinance that we're talking about here is we don't want to do anything for this police department to make it less than it is. It's a great police department. We need, and we were elected to have oversight over every department in Neptune. And that does not exclude the police department. Every department has oversight with 2 committee members at least on that committee. We want to do the same thing with the police department so that this committee has direct oversight, direct access to the police department, not indirect. We want to make it better, and we intend to do that. Now, the gentleman in the back with the blue shirt on, you haven't been up yet.
Thank you. I'm Bruce Jensen, reside at 999 Tabor Way in Ocean Grove. I just wanted to comment on the idea of referendum, the ordinance to create a referendum for a pilot program for parking, and how I think this is not only an unnecessary layer of complexity to the whole problem, but Mayor Brent, you spoke last time of fairness in this entire process. And I think that anything that would be voted on by the voting public is almost inherently unfair when it comes to Ocean Grove, because I reside in New York for most of the year, spend weekends down here in Ocean Grove, and the summers down here in Ocean Grove, but I'm not a registered voter in this area. I looked briefly before I came here tonight at the census maps from 2010 and from the year 2000. In the year 2000, 19% of the people in Ocean Grove were seasonal. So that's 19% of the people that wouldn't be voting. In the year 2010, so from 2000, 19%, in the year 2010, it was 30% of the people in Ocean Grove are residential and can't even vote on this. I suspect that now in 2017, the number is probably even higher. So my concern really is with the fairness in terms of using a referendum, not to mention all the complexity that goes into an ordinance for a referendum that probably isn't even necessary to start a trial program. If you're really interested in, and I'm not saying that most of the town wants permit parking, I don't know, but perhaps some other way, maybe your own task force that you have direct control over, working with the residents directly is probably a better way to get the information you're looking for than an ordinance for a referendum.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. That helps us get everything everybody says. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Obviously, I'm new here, so I don't have the first name with some of you. The name is Norm. And I'd like to say that we're dealing with an issue that is not that difficult. You're talking about a referendum. It's a very easy thing. The issue affects the people of Ocean Grove. And many of us do not, as this gentleman just said, vote here. I don't vote here. I'm a legal resident of Florida. But for 17 years, I have been paying a very nice tax payment for the home that I have and enjoy here in Ocean Grove. There are many of us like that. That's one of the reasons why we appreciate you developing these kinds of policies while we're all here during the summer. Now, the issue is you want to get some kind of feedback from the Ocean Grove people as to whether they want to go with this kind of parking situation. Okay? It's very easy. Very easy. In fact, I can even tell you how to save postage on this. Because coming from Florida, we use a lot of mail ballots. So all I am saying is include a mail ballot to every Ocean Grove taxpayer in their next bill for taxes. That's very easy, isn't it? Seems simple to me. And the point is, you might say, oh, well, we have to worry about the whole township because maybe some of the township people go down the road. Listen, fellas and gal, we know very well that there are a lot of special things that the township does for other enclaves in the township. You even pave the sidewalks in other parts of the township. You even build marinas in other parts of it. That's okay. That's your job. But all I'm asking is that in Ocean Grove, we should be making the decision at what is best for us. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Carol Dixon-Woolfolk, and I'm at 71 Stockton Avenue in Ocean Grove, and I've been a resident here for 15 years. Raised a family here. I'm also, my husband and I, owners of a multifamily. It's always been a multifamily. My concern, and I'm not averse to permit parking. I think that's okay, but I do want to make sure that in making whatever rules go along with that, that you take into account that there are a lot of multifamily homes in Ocean Grove. We pay taxes too, and they're by our tenants because that's what's included in their rent. They pay taxes too. And I've heard along the way that one of the proposals is that it's, you know, 1 permit or 2 permits per structure. And I'm just saying, that's what I hear. So I think it's really important that we communicate a lot more broadly than is being done right now. I just happened to get an email from a friend, and I've lived here for ages, and they said, think about this. So I would just really encourage everybody to please make sure that, as someone said earlier, this really includes all Ocean Grove owners and residents, as well as a much better communication vehicle than what we're using right now.
Thank you. On that note, this discussion about the referendum just came up. It's not something we've been planning on to talk about for a while. It came up and it's on the agenda, so we can start the conversation. So there has been no real plans as of yet, and the input we're getting from everybody here helps us in determining if that's a vehicle forward or not. We don't know yet. And even if it is, it's going to be difficult because the deadline is so close. So that's basically it. Yes.
Anne Moran, 69 Clark Avenue, Ocean Grove. I just want to make something clear. I believe that you suggested we have maybe 300 members in the homeowners. I would like to tell you that, first of all, we have approximately 600 members in the Homeowners Association, and our email list consists of over 700 individuals. Our emails go out on everything that happens here sometimes, and all notices from the Ocean Grove homeowners. That's all I have.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
What are you afraid I'm going to say?
Yes, there's other people in the room, Dorothy.
It seems like I'm not in the room.
Hello, my name is Cindy Williams, 140 Mount Herman Way, and I would call that one of the battlegrounds of traffic there, parking in Ocean Grove, because we're right on Lawrence and Herman and Benson. I think our police department is doing an excellent job, and I have no question about that. However, I do have some complaints about the police department. All of a sudden, they've made it a major thing to come into our area and start giving tickets. And I think that's, after all the stress of the parking, and we have the majority of our parking is taken by Asbury residents, or not residents, but people who work over there. And I can't really, say too much about that, because those people are working and they probably are waitresses and waiters and they're getting tips, and they can't afford to park over in Asbury Park. So what's Asbury Park doing about this? We don't know. So anyway, back to the parking. I can look out my front door, I live on the corner, and I have my car in front of my house, and I can look down the street, and they're all Asbury Park people. They get parked, They get out of their car, they ride their skateboards over, down the hill to Lawrence, and over to Asbury Park. Okay, so now, when I first moved to Ocean Grove 16 years ago, I kind of thought it was strange that the police department didn't patrol the streets very well. And then, you know, they started patrolling the streets a little more and more and more. Then all of a sudden, when we have this parking problem, boy, they're right over there. My wife got a ticket the other day for parking 1 foot over into the yellow zone because a huge truck parked in front of her and took up 2 spaces in Ocean Grove. So what do? So I would say that the traffic or the ticketing people are kind of, I don't want to say sexual harassment, but maybe ticket harassment already. You know, we don't need that with the stress that we already have with parking.
Can I just make a comment? And one of the things, you know, we've had this big fire. And one of the problems that we have are the streets are so narrow that if the fire trucks can't get through because they can't make a turn, minutes count, seconds count.
Oh, I know that.
So,
I have a wood house. I live in Ocean Grove. Come on.
All I'm saying is, the reason that they are much more on the ball around ticketing is because of that.
Okay, my next thing though is that same day that she got a ticket because some Asbury Park person was parking right on the side of our house, there were several vehicles working at a house across the street in the fire zones, which is kind of scary for us because then fire trucks can't get by. And the police came by every 2 hours, Did they once stop and give tickets to the 3 vans that were parked in the yellow spaces? No.
Well,
that's not right.
You're absolutely right.
That's not
right.
right.
And we will ask Lieutenant Zarro to take a look
back
at
there, and he will address that.
And he's gonna find out what's going on. But they to be very candid, I also live in the Grove. Okay? To be very candid, they're on alert for people who are going to make it difficult to get those fire trucks in. So
9 times out of 10, when that Asbury Park person leaves, we pull our car out.
I understand.
But when they stay until 2 in the morning, what are we supposed to do?
I don't disagree.
And there were no parking places. My wife is deaf, and she comes home sometimes later in the evening. She needs to be able to park near our home, and we should all have that right. We pay taxes to Neptune Township. We need to be able to park by our homes. And we don't need to justify to Asbury Park kids that come and work over there and give us the finger when we say, how long are you going to be parking there? Or could you please pull up a little bit instead of taking 2 parking places? You know, it's not right.
I don't disagree.
Please start harassing us. That's not fair.
Yeah.
When the trash guys came through this week, now this is hilarious. We watched this happen. They threw the trash bins into the street, as they normally do, and the ticket officer came through, parked the car in the middle of the street, and put all the trash bins up on top of the sidewalk. Now that's getting a little bit ridiculous.
Okay.
We didn't put the trash bins out there. The garbage people.
Thank you. We heard your concern, and we're taking that into consideration. Doc, I'm trying to get the people who have not been up here yet at all. So you have to be patient. Yes, ma'am. Yes, in the purple.
Hello, I'm Kathy Giacomo, live in 7 Avenue in Ocean Grove, and I wanted to talk about the parking issue.
Can't hear you.
I want to talk about the parking issue, and I agree with the people who spoke before me and felt that a referendum will not adequately address the concerns of the residents who this affects. So I don't think that's a good option. However, I did hear people talking about permanent parking. I think each house pays taxes, And so that would justify each house having 1 or 2 parking permit options if they're reasonably priced. And I think that would be the fairest way to address this very complicated issue. Perhaps doing it on a trial basis, but I think that would be the fairest way from what I'm hearing and what I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman in the green.
Hi, James McNamara, 86 Asbury Avenue, Ocean Road. A story and a couple of questions. We live at 86 Asbury Avenue, and that's right between the 2 bridges, kind of putting us in ground zero of parking issues on the north side of town. I regularly see people with their smartphones looking which way they should go to either bridge. I've had people ask me for directions on which way the bridge is. I've had people, as other people have reported, park on my street and then walk over across one of the bridges to work. I've encountered people in Asbury's businesses I've visited say that what a great deal it is for them to park in Ocean Grove for free and not have to use the Asbury parking permits that they have access to as employees of Asbury Park. And I live in one of the triangular lots on Asbury Avenue that accommodates sometimes 5 to 6 cars in front of it. Some people park efficiently, as regular Ocean Grove residents do. Some people do not. So that's my story to add to your overwhelming, I think, stories of what's going on in Ocean Grove. The other thing I would say is, I'm curious, why did you, with the recommendations from your own parking task force and the recommendations from the parking committee of the Ocean Grove Homeowners Association, why did you decide to go with the referendum idea rather than closely looking at all the recommendations and suggestions of the 2 committees?
I think we considered the recommendations of the 2 committees. The referendum we're not going in that direction. It would be brought up to discuss it. But whether we go that direction or not remains to be seen, just like the recommendations from the task force.
But the recommendations of the task force were not, there was no consensus, there was no clear consensus for permanent parking. And so, and I, like you, live in Ocean Road, and I live on Mount Carmel, right near that bridge. So I know what you're speaking about. And like that lady said, I've seen the fights with people. My partner routinely now, my partner who is the most level-headed person, quiet, serene, she's starting to have fights with people, right? Because they take up two parking spaces when they know that, you know, if they move back a little bit, you know, it'll still be okay. So I get it. The reason we were talking about referendum was because after the parking committee, there weren't very many options. And yeah, now we're starting to talk again about parking permits. And I think this discussion that we're having here is very educational for almost all of us, right? So I'm happy that you guys are all here to give us information and input.
And the second comment on a different topic regarding the RFQ for the preservation architect. I'm curious, and I think you've been asked this question several times before, and in the mayor's initiative on transparency, why is an HPC person not represented in any of the vetting committees or the committees to look at this issue?
But you said we would reach out to them, right?
To Preservation New Jersey, but decision has not been made on who the vetting committee is going to be as we move forward.
Okay, that decision hasn't been made yet.
Well, you didn't really answer my question. My question was, why has HPC not been part of any of the discussions on the discussions of what the issue should be?
Well, using our experts, we're discussing that. We have experts that we can talk to, and we won't leave you out entirely, but we can talk to other people and other experts, and we will do that. And at some point in time, we can talk to the HBC.
Thank you.
Trying to find the gentleman next to Nancy. Yes.
We're the original three males.
Oh, that's Jones, I'm sorry.
I'm Terry Checky, I live in 74 Mount Tabor Way.
I call it Nancy. Nancy's over there.
Although I don't vote.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I live in 74 Mount Tabor Way. Although I don't vote there, we spend probably 50 weekends a year down here, a considerable amount of time over the course of the summer. I want to talk about something you've heard everything about already, which is the parking issue. And I just want to underscore the point that I understand it's gotten a lot of attention from the committee. I understand there's been a lot of disagreement as to what should be done, what could be done, what can be done, what can't be done. Something has to be done. And it's your responsibility to the taxpayers of Ocean River to do it, to find a solution to what's going on. This is a real quality of life issue for the people who sit and play and pay taxes at Ocean River. Last weekend, we went to church. After church, it took me 65 minutes to find a parking space, 20 blocks from my home. I live on Mount Tabor. I had to park on Inskip over by Bradley Beach by the tennis courts. That was the only parking space. My wife, who spoke earlier, had a double knee replacement. We can't be held hostage in our own homes. And the unpleasantness that goes along with the contention around parking spaces is going to wind up causing something very unfortunate if this issue isn't addressed. We are very cognizant of our responsibility to be good hosts to the visitors and to the faithful and to the people of Bradley Beach and Asbury Park and to the people who attend the auditorium. But somebody has got to be cognizant of our needs and do something to take care of the issues that we confront too. We shouldn't have to be hostage in our own homes for 10 or 12 weeks a year. Thank you.
Let me point out, it's not like we have not tried and we gave up. We've been trying this for years. I've been here 8 years. This is not the first time that we've had a task force and we've tried things like parking lots on school property and transporting people over to Ocean Grove. We've tried so many things and permits. We're looking at that also. So we're not giving up, and we'll see what's going to happen with that. Now, the young lady in the back.
Thank you for calling me a young lady. Hi, I'm Jenny Shaker. I too live on Mount Tabor. I think the entire street is here today. I mean, a comment about parking, and then I have a couple of questions. I too don't understand the rationale to have a referendum. I don't vote here, and I never can find a parking space. Yesterday I ended up on Clark, of all places. Maybe the time would be better spent trying to figure out how to make permits work. It's a serious, serious problem in the north end for us. So a trial, something, but I think the time is better spent not dealing with the referendum where people are not represented, but again, to come up with some solutions. And I know people in the homeowners are more than willing to do that. So that's my comment. My questions have to do mostly with what Nancy started to talk about. And first is CLG. What is the timetable to complete that application? I remember talking about it 10 years ago. So is there a timetable? When do you plan to have that done to be submitted to the state?
Well, if you heard what Nancy said tonight, we've had an initial meeting with her, and with her assistance, we are moving forward to a meeting date with SHPO. We are waiting for that date to be returned to us, and then we will have a meeting and move forward on the submission of the application.
But in your minds, when are you thinking that this is going to happen? Because this discussion has been going on forever. Do you hope to have it done this calendar year?
Well, it's very possible that it could be done this calendar year, and we'll hear that, what that potential date would be after meeting with SHPO.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question is about the RFQ for the guidance. Do you have any estimated time that you think this second try will be completed?
Should be completed and ready to go out before the end of the summer.
Before the end of the summer. it's not clear from what you said, Mayor, before. Are you planning to have anyone in the community, anyone from the HPC, help you with this? Look at it before you send it out? There were problems with the first one.
I think the decision on who will be involved in that process will reside with the governing body.
We haven't decided that yet.
Okay, but you're going to figure that out before it gets sent out, I hope.
Absolutely.
Okay, so sometime before the end of the summer. Okay, thank you.
I would like to ask, why was the plan for a parking house given up, or a parking lot? I mean, we're still, a while ago, the North End development was in
Excuse me,
question.
before you go any further, we need your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ingrid Held and 34 Bell Avenue. But a while ago, the North End development was being discussed, and I was very much against it because it would have added to the problem. Why don't we use that area for now to just put a parking lot? I was told, oh, it's going to cost $40,000 per parking spot. If we just pave it over for now and just use the parking and then build up to a parking lot later, it should be paid parking, and that way we finance at least a portion of the parking house. But this has to, you know, we cannot make more parking spaces. Even if we shift the burden now onto other people, it's going to come up again. We're just going to need more and more spaces, and I think the parking lot or house should not be given up on.
The uniqueness of Ocean Grove gives us a tremendous problem with this. The land is privately owned, so we can't determine that there's a parking garage put anywhere in Ocean Grove.
But it's owned by the Camp Meeting Association.
Yes, that's
they are using our parking spots.
Well, you need to talk to them.
But it's,
You need to speak to them about that.
I know, but you know,
We
that's
can't.
part of the problem. That we suddenly have so many people in town.
Yes.
Because they're going there, and they should be going there.
Yeah, there's so many parts of this problem, and we've been trying, and we'll continue to try.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Jack, yes, I think your arm, you must have been getting a workout back there. I know what you're going to say. Pay the retention basin.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Jack Gray, 94 and a half Heck Avenue, Ocean Grove. About quickly on the parking, I wasn't going to speak about that tonight. I was going to continue with the rest of it. But you're right, Mayor. I agree with you. There's been about 5 times in the past when the committee dealt with parking in Ocean Grove, and but in the 1980s, a parking consultant, a planning consultant, advised the committee, and they agreed in the 1980s, that Ocean Grove was completely built out then, and the streets are the parking lot for the people of Ocean Grove, and the parking lot was filled in the early 1980s, and so they suggested, and the committee agreed, that any time a house that was a 2-family, 3-family, 6-family, 12-family, no matter what it was, when it came down, it would be a single-family house. But since then, you're approving over 300 condominiums, contrary to what not you personally, but the committee had agreed to 30 years ago. And yes, you've had 5 or 6 times you studied what the problem was, but of course you're never going to come to the conclusion that you're the problem. You created the problem, and so you'll never get a solution until you start, doing the right thing. But anyway, recently, getting back to Wesley Lane.
That is Todd's favorite thing to talk about.
You call it a lake, huh?
It is a lake. It is a lake. Recently, the Wesley Lake Commission agreed to arrange to have the lake water tested. The test results were sent to Master Consulting to be reviewed. Their conclusions were referred to Joseph Rafferty. I'm not pronouncing it right, I know, but it's spelled Raftery. And the Wesley Lake Commission scheduled a conference with Mr. Rafferty to review the results, and he did. At their last meeting, you were there, Mayor, I was there. The consultant reported that Master Consulting concluded, one, that Wesley Lake was a man-made lake that has many outfalls into the lake. In other words, there's a lot of pipes that are going into the lake. And he says, however, it's a closed system which has no outfall from the lake. Of course, that's not true because there's aerial photographs of the plumes of pollution that are coming into the Atlantic Ocean from Wesley Lake. So that certainly is not true. And he goes on to say, when this occurs, the lake becomes a retention pond. Now, as I said earlier, a retention pond has no environmental protection to it. And this is what I was told by a member of the commission at the meeting prior to this. And he was the commission member who was the DPW representative from Neptune Township. And now why would he come to that conclusion? Well, he's backing you up with your tax map that says Wesley Lake is a Wesley retention basin. It's not a lake. It just says, and so now, so you have people that work for you willing to lie about what you've done, which is a lie, and I say it's a lie because Mr. Webster said that which creates a false impression is a lie, and so you're creating a false impression that this is a retention pond, but it's not. So you have people on the committee willing to lie because you're lying, and now you have a professional engineer, at least he says he's a professional. I don't know if he is. I tried to find out if he had a license, and he had one at one time. I don't know if he has one now. But anyway, he's now lying on your behalf. And the reason I say that, lying on your behalf, because you all have the exclusive authority over the tax map. You have the exclusive authority over this. And that's what it says. This is your position. Your position is there's no longer any environmental protection on the lake. And you guys are wrong. And the reason you're wrong is because there's no resolution to back up what you say. There's no reason for what you did. No resolution.
Thank you. John. Finally,
One of the original 3 minutes. Joan Venezia, 107 Mount Herman Way. I have a number of comments. For HBC, I'd like to personally ask for representation from the HBC to be involved with the RFQ. I'd also like to know, when is it going to be completed? I keep hearing it's in writing. Is there a target date to have it finished? I guess I'm a little bit...
I just said it a few minutes ago, that before the end of the summer.
The end of the summer?
Yes.
Okay, I'll hold you to it. Speaking of dates, when is the date for, you say by the end of the year is the target date for the CLG to be submitted? Is there a target date for that?
No, actually, I just said that once we have the meeting that is waiting to be scheduled with CLG and SHPO, we will have a potential date for submission of the application.
I just want to note that that's been in the works for years, and in reference to Kathy Earl and her memorial, I would really like to see some action.
Well,
The word I'm going to say tonight is action. I'd like to see some action out of the Township Committee. The next thing I'd like to state is I disagree with a referendum. I'd like to see a pilot program. I'd like to see action out of this committee, like Asbury Park has action, and do something, and just do a pilot program. What would it hurt to do a pilot program in a small area? Asbury Park does this. Why can't we just do it without a referendum? You had a parking committee, you've had all this input. I think you have a little input tonight. I want to let you know 2 other people left tonight that were going to speak. One was too hungry and one was too tired to waiting to tell you about it. I just want to give you their input.
I'm hungry and tired too.
Well, you're going to continue.
I just said that.
I would like to see parking permits. I'd like to see a pilot project without a referendum. I'd like to see action. Just do it. I don't think you need any more than just do it. I'd like to see it for summer only. I'd like to see one.
Just do it.
and I'd like to see it reasonably priced. So all I'm gonna say about parking permits. Next is police statistics. I come to these meetings and I hear a lot of things about police swept under the rug. There was some guy here who never answered my question or your question about the source of his statistics. What I would have liked to have seen from you or anybody to give a good answer to what he said. He had a big chart and he had a big lineup with increasing in complaints. I have no real concrete information, no offense, your statements during.
No, I have concrete information. And
I'd like to see it after the meeting.
And that's what I was saying. He had the complaints, but out of 35,000 services. No, we're going to give you something.
I would like to see concrete information that says what are the increased complaints, not three phrases during you guys kissing babies and parades and all that. I've asked for a year ago for you guys to, during the comments, that if you're in charge of a committee or an area, police, I'd like to hear about what happens to the police instead of I went to the parade and I marched and it was tired. I don't want to hear that. No offense. It's no value added to me. I want to hear, if you're in charge of housing or if you're in charge of the police, tell me something about what happened with that month or those 2 weeks. I've asked that a year ago and you all said, great idea, great idea. I hear nothing in those comments in the front. You're each in charge of some area, and I don't hear a thing about what goes on in them. That means more to me than all your parades and all your funerals and all your whatever. I don't need to hear 3 people tell me about 3 people dying. One person can tell me somebody died. You told me, you told me, I don't need that. Thank you. Someday you'll listen. North End. I want to appreciate for your help with the North End cleanup. The areas that I'd like to still ask for help is there's 3 dumpsters on that area. Do they have the right to keep 3 full dumpsters on that?
Well, actually, 2 of the dumpsters are contracted by the Camp Meeting Association for the cleanup of the beach and the boardwalk trash containers. The 3rd dumpster is contracted by Dunes. That's to a private vendor. The other 2 are through the township.
And there's a pallet leaning up against the fence. To me, why somebody couldn't pick that up and throw it out? To me, somebody could use it as a wrong thing. I mean, why would you put that on a boardwalk where people are walking by? If not, can we give them a code violation if they don't want to comply with this? I'm going to try and talk to them like a reasonable
Well, I would
person.
hope that the Camp Meeting Association would,
remove a pallet that's on the boardwalk.
would remove a pallet, yes.
If I can't get them to do it, I'm going to come to you and ask for you to help me.
You know how to get a hold of me.
Thank you. Jeannie, last question. Have we had this camp meeting and the waive agreement signed?
I haven't heard anything.
So we don't think it has, or did you ask?
I don't know about it.
You haven't asked them?
I ask them every time before the meeting, but I haven't heard anything back from my employees.
So they didn't respond. Thank you.
Dorothy?
No.
Now the other Dorothy.
The other Dorothy.
All right.
Dorothy Archer, 2100 Belford. The trouble with ordinance 1729, it leaves the same insiders in charge of the police department who gave you the Sile case. I think everybody's heard of that. The Katie Lee Thomas case, it's a year later than when she was found dead in a Neptune jail, and we still don't know why. Something being covered up. And the Savage Gonzalez case, sex discrimination, where we paid big to settle the case, and the cops are still doing it. There had to be another lawsuit. I guess you know there have been recently 2 separate requests, not connected, to attorneys general. Mine went to the U.S. Attorney General and the State Attorney General. The NAACP's letter went to the State Attorney General in Newark for a full investigation of the undemocratic policies and practices of this gang of 5, of this Neptune government. They're different. The one by me has 80 pages of documentation, and it refers to unconstitutional ordinances. The NAACP I certainly believe in theirs as much as I believe in my own, that complains about the police and the fact that the Turner report that we paid to $27,000 of our money for is being kept secret. You seem to be depending on insiders and secrecy, and I wonder why. Aside from the many lawsuits that are filed against us, the closest we have gotten to an independent outsider evaluation of the wonderful police department is the Turner report. It must be really awful, because I have been at a meeting where everybody said, oh, we didn't read it. We didn't read it, and we're keeping it a secret. Wow, it must be dreadful. What does it talk about? Rape, arson, brutality, maybe all those things? I want to read you one little piece from my letter, which isn't about this. Note that Neptune's administration has also produced unique and well-publicized events, such as the Philip Sile case. Neptune police officer stalks and murders his ex-wife in public while fellow officers stand around doing nothing. The Katie Lee Thomas case, pretty young girl found dead in a Neptune jail cell, August 2016. 9 months later, we don't even know why. Oh, there's something being covered up. I think I have a good idea what it might be. And the gender discrimination case of Savage and Gonzalez versus the police department, in which abusive police officers continued the abuse even after we taxpayers paid $660,000 to settle the case. They have had to file a second lawsuit. I think we're looking at punitive damages. At least I hope so. These practices, well, the rest of my letter. Did you receive a copy of either letter, either mine, which is a group, or the NAACP? Did you receive those? You have not. I'll make sure you get copies. Mine is expensive because I have 80 pages of documentation, and it went to copies, went to the editor of the New York Times, the editor of the Wall Street Journal, the editor of the Asbury Park Press, attention, Austin Bowes, who's been doing great work, and a couple of other people, editor of the New York Star Ledger, editor of the Coast, you can get one, and the Institute for Justice in Arlington, Virginia. I will make sure you get a copy of what, plus about 3 or 4 blind copies, one of which goes to my favorite magazine, The New Yorker. All right.
Thank you, Dorothy. Yes, you're next.
Everybody else went over their time.
No, they didn't. I stopped them.
Oh, you stopped them? What did you do? You didn't do that.
Yes. You might have been asleep.
Oh, you're such a